Evening, everyone. This is the Revelist. I've been away for a little bit. I had uploaded a video that I ended up taking down because it just wasn't, what I wanted, and it was me in a way that I didn't really know if I should have put up on the internet or not. But I may try it again. I'm just, needing to figure a way to do it in a little better, way than this. I certainly had to put something up because it's July 29th, 2020, and I think it was about a month ago that I uploaded something that actually stayed up, with how long my videos tend to get, which is just basically me, speaking about how I think about things. They get quite long, and I almost never go back and rewatch them, so I may cover something tonight. A lot of my videos tend to overlap, things I've talked about before, but that's kind of just how my thought process is anyway. But I had to get something out, and I'm going to fumble through it like I tend to with other things, because I had something in mind, and I still do to some extent, but as I mentioned in my last one, things have come up in my life that have made my desire to do this come into question. There are certain, things that I've had to encounter and have had to deal with that, make me wonder if this is even worth it. And not for the specific, venue or anything. I mean, although YouTube is a pretty... it's becoming a difficult place to want to put content onto. Certainly ask anyone other than, someone with a fledgling channel. Wanting to start this right now seems to be just me asking for trouble, and clearly I'm a sadist. So, a masochist. Far from a sadist. I probably am a big masochist, though, but I think on an unconscious level more than anything. But I think that's what I'm just going to make this. It's just going to be me putting something out there, and hoping it sticks. And, if the world doesn't end tomorrow, then, or, the next day, or, COVID doesn't, keep us locked in our houses, or, with our freaking masks on forever, then I'll try to make it into something bigger, something better, where it's not just these, like, one-on-ones that I seem to have with, hopefully, like a couple dozen people, maybe. But, the idea that I had is that one of the biggest things for me throughout my life is that, or that I've, encountered as a major, point of contention that I want to bring to light for people is the appreciation and the misunderstanding sometimes through people's misappreciation. I know that I don't think that's a word, but of symbols. Symbols are to me one of the biggest concepts in all of human thought. It's one of the most central ideations of the human experience, I don't think there's a single thing we can do without something being a symbol of something else. Religion, philosophy, all of it is rooted in, a symbol structure. Language itself is just sounds made with our tongue and other, articulation points in the mouth, but we've created a way to root those happenstantial aspects of ourselves into both the past and the future, you know. And that's a major, part of how all of this is going to, or how I'm going to convey all this, because something we're finding today is that the way we were raised is being revealed to be something different than what we thought it was. And largely that's coming about in the form of people who we thought we knew, but never really did, coming out to prove themselves to be just as human as they always were. Politicians, celebrities, and the like, Some of my most favorite songs in my life are the ones that I heard on the radio. And specifically because of the way that my mind works, I'll listen to a song 1,000 times, and it became, something that I used as a tool to look back on my life. And, I'm sure that's the same for everybody, but I can remember whole lyrics to songs, and specifically, I don't have a favorite artist. I don't even have many artists who are people who I would go to a concert for or buy an album for. I've bought very few albums in my life. But, when I was growing up and I had the money, my first paychecks, I went and splurged a little bit on the albums that were definitely, hot for me at the time. But beyond that, I didn't really ever get into any band that was what I could constitute as a favorite that was my favorite in that way. Songs for me always were, I heard it when I heard it, and it became a milestone marker for a point in my life. And that's all it ever was. Except for a few, as I said. I tend to, go more for female artists. I just like, female singers. But I will always say that if I personally like a male singer, they are not bad. They are fantastic. It takes a lot for a male singer to really resonate with me enough to like them as an artist. But it's the music, I think, that has done the most damage in our society, at least for the fact that it's something that we carry with us. We carried with us throughout most of modern history before we had our cell phone, before we had even the internet and the computers that we look at the internet on. And people will look around and God, that light went off quickly. Shit. People will look around and they'll wonder, how did culture change? How did things get the way they did? Well, they got the way they did because, at least in part, as far as I am concerned, the music formed people's interpretation of what was then to become normalized. It all started, largely with, pop music. Pop music normalized, and I mean, this had existed forever, but the love song, it opened up people's deepest, expression. It reinforced their experiences. And it was expressed out into the world. So people opened up to this, constantly reverberating notion of what their deepest thing actually was. Love is supposed to be something which is sacred, which is supposed to be something that is kept inside for all but a few, other than the love that you can have unconditionally for your fellow man and stuff like that. But you had Madonna back in the 80s, singing her songs about love, and then, like Cherish, or I can't remember more than that. I think that's one of the only songs of hers I actually like, because it resonated with me from a young age. When I mean, like one or two of her other songs, but like Material Girl, it's like, why was that a song? I mean, yeah, it's kind of lyrically kitschy in its own right. I mean, it's kind of well written, but I don't know if the woman actually wrote this fucking song. But these things still, and I mean all genres, stick with us, and they resonate with us, and they become symbol forms for our, experience in the moment as it was expressed to us, and it, fed our desire to express ourselves, even more so. So that's what all of this is really about. It's about what we experienced and what we were then willing to express. And just over time, these expressions of another person, reinforced what we feel. And then it just became more and more overexpressed. And that's why I think, to some extent, today music kind of sucks. There's very few artists who are actually worth a goddamn. And it isn't just simply music, but that is the most, I think, expressive one. TV is just television. I mean, I don't know how to put it any better. TV is something that you partake in, but it's not something that you, like I said, carry with you. But, to the larger matter at hand, music forms who we are. It's kind of like how we talk to each other. It's the entertaining way that we talk to each other as a culture, and but in any genre, any medium of any kind, we not only take what we experience in that moment and hold it inside, but we take the person who expressed it and we give them this power to be able to continue to do it. And that power is to celebritize them, We open up ourselves, our minds, our hearts, and our souls to this person who we give this, false sense of identity to, that this is somebody who we know, somebody who we think we know, at the very least. But this person is not somebody who we will ever know. And yet we treat them like that. We assume, we know what a person is like. And that, gives us a false sense of security that that person is always going to be how we assume. And thus, can do no wrong. And when they do wrong, or God forbid, when somebody, dies, we think that, we'll gasp when, the talk show host or the game show host died, and yeah, they were with us for as long as, our life, as long as we've lived on this planet to some extent, sometimes, but we didn't know these people. We didn't have this, direct experience with these people, other than what was in front of us secondhandedly, either through the things we listened to constantly or the things that we watched, as much, if not just a little less. But those things stuck with us and they became a part of our life, and that's why they say don't ever meet your heroes, because those people could turn out to be everything that you don't stand for in your own self. They didn't grow up with you. You didn't grow up with them. You don't know who they truly fucking are. But that's even, you know, but that's as big a thing, but just slightly less so than those things that we grew up with are never tarnished. And that comes back to symbolism. Even if somebody who was on a TV show or was a famous musician, they still created something which was what you adopted for your life. It became a part of you. And regardless of the fact if that person becomes something or demonstrates something that isn't what you thought, even if it's not demonstrating exactly what their music or their character embodied, that person who, yes, still is completely, fallible and, mortal and, is capable of making mistakes, is fallible, I know, but, just the capacity to be human and them demonstrating it does not take away, does not tarnish the thing that you know them for. Because that thing that you know them for comes from somewhere higher. It comes from, yes, for a moment inside of them. And that's their expression. And it cannot take away from your experience. However, and this is the crux of my point, much like throughout history, we've had symbols that have been misconstrued, used in the wrong way, used by horrible people. The swastika comes to mind. The swastika comes from a Sanskrit phrase, if I'm not mistaken, su asti, which means well-being, or be well. But fucking Hitler, he was a mad occultist, and he, with his band of Nazi occultists, decided to attempt to look for relics throughout the world and find these symbols that they had heard about. And shit, the plot lines in many popular movies, Indiana Jones, fucking I think Captain America, just plenty of many different genres, but specifically that kind of thing. And they were known for that. The Thule Society, I believe, was what they were called, or the Ahnenerbe, I believe that's another one. If not, was the one that was actually what people thought the Thule Society was. But see, it goes back. All of human history is about, what we heard other people's experiences were by the things that were expressed upon them and they expressed back, and these things became legends, which became myths. So we wanted to experience it. We put ourselves out there. We expressed ourselves to try to find it. All life is just a bunch of expressions of, a bunch of our expressions hoping to garner more experiences, and just constantly. It's a never-ending cycle of experience and expression. That's it. Made up of fucking mind, matter, and magic, as I like to say. With a little bit of information and meaning, peppered in. But all of this is, we have all of these things, all of these symbols that, we hope are what we think of them, but they may not be. But those symbols never changed. The meaning only changed when we decided to express it differently to enhance our own personal experience that we already have. Hitler didn't take the swastika to mean something, less than what he thought he was doing. He took it to, he tilted it, fucking, I think, 90 degrees, 45 or 90 degrees. I'm not exactly, awake enough to, you know, figure out the dimensions. Anyway, um, but he did this to fit his own narrative. And we later on, after going through our experiences because of his expressions, we judged it by what he did, you know. And the thing I think people take for granted is that the things that people do who turn out to not be what you think, the symbol form is still what it is. Treasure it. Treasure those songs that made you, feel something. Treasure those movies that made you feel something. Even if the person in it doesn't match to what you think they should in the end. And specifically what I'm talking about is all these people, these actors who are being found for potentially being a band of horrifying child molesters and child traffickers. Fucking Bill Cosby. I mean, he was one of the most well-liked people in the industry, as far as I'm concerned, at least by most people's metric, but he turned out to be a fucking, a molester of sorts, to women. I believe he was even a rapist, of young women in the industry. And now more of it's being revealed that Hollywood is just a hotbed for, sexual deviation and fucking predators and, child, just the worst of the worst people, And with that much power, I guess, comes it, and that comes from the celebritizing of these people and giving them a status and putting them on a pedestal, What we forgot to do was to take what they gave us, their expression, and not express back to them, an experience that was above our own. But I guess that's what the industry has to be. It has to be people are incentivized to continue to do it, which is why you celebritize them, give them all the money in the world to, and give them some sense of power, I guess, which then gives them a big, big head and a big ego, and they think that they can get away with damn near anything. Kind of akin to the whole classism of the police, force that, throughout this country and the world, which is a major problem which does have to be tackled. Just not the way a lot of people are doing it. But we've over embellished their importance to the point that we've given them some capacity to do something that was only left to the worst of the worst when it came to, like aristocrats and monarchs. They were the ones who were so bloated, mentally, just this heavy-handed, sense of entitlements and, and themselves that they thought that they could get away with anything. Well, we created a new freaking tier. We created a new part of the system, and one even wonders if that's the way it was always meant to be, that, you could sell a narrative through these things to cultivate people in a specific way. Their expressions alter our experiences in a good way most of the time, but, were we being given things that we would never have wanted if we had known it was being given to the part we opened up in order to let it in? And so when people look around and ask, how did culture change? Well, that's how. We gave these people the power to alter who exactly we want to be. And we normalize, or we allowed them to express to us the normalization of things, which by that extent became what we saw when we looked around and we thought, well, hell, I want to experience what they're clearly experiencing or what they're saying is normal, so I'm going to alter myself to some extent, maybe even to a large extent, and I'm going to become exactly what it is that they themselves say is true and real and whatever. And that's the bittersweet thing we find ourselves in. You know, that's also why the title of this video is going to be Past Experiences and Future Expressions. Because our past experiences are what make it very difficult for us to accept the new reality there, or which is being given to us by new things being revealed about how these people truly are. And we have to decide what we're going to do with that information. How are we going to express ourselves when we find out the world is not the way we thought it was, which is the entire point of this channel, to reveal things, to bring things to light. You know, hold on to your past experiences, but don't let that hold you back from expressing what you know should be the case, that your past reinforced for you and might keep you from wanting to see changed. We're in a very turbulent time right now, you know, and, you know, especially with these groups around the country who want to burn shit down, you know, their past experiences, at least the ones that are, you know, righteous and right, you know, the ones who actually are worthy of a cause, are the ones who are expressing themselves now in a way that could tear everything down. But that's because they're being held back by what they experienced. And they think that that's their springboard to express themselves now. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I know what to think, but I don't know what to do. You know. We are in the time of revelation. We are in the time of the mark of the beast. I'm pagan as fuck, but I believe in those things because I know what those things are. You know, it's when a civilization becomes so glazed over, you know, that it doesn't know how to think anymore. It doesn't know how to process anything. It just finds itself in a stupor because it's advanced enough to live comfortably. Which I want. I want that. I want the Star Trek future, but I don't want to go into it, you know, with this notion that we're barely people because we don't remember how to be people without someone living our lives for us, you know. So, or, you know, telling us because we lived our lives in a certain way that we have to amend ourselves constantly and never being able to solidify into something else again, that or to solidify into something that is, you know, nullifying of a part of ourselves we did actually have the entire time. You know, that's wrong too. It's just, you know, a matter of, and maybe even more so now, don't let the things that you find out about the people who you looked up to, or, you know, found something